The joy is in the journey, not the destination. We've all heard that quote before, and for whatever reason, we've brushed it aside. Whether that's because, we've just forgotten about it, like we usually do a lot of good quotes because there's just so many of them, or you've kind of disagreed with it. You've been like, no, like the destination actually matters. Like if you go through the journey, you don't get to your destination, then nothing, you've wasted your time. But for whatever reason, you've forgotten about that, or you've rejected it. You shouldn't, because the process actually matters. All these like successful people you see in whatever domain you see them in, they enjoy the process one way or another. They found a way to enjoy the process. Whether it's like your athletes and your musicians and all of that, where they've hit such a high level, right? That hasn't happened without them not having some kind of passion for it. Now, where people sort of get this mixed up is that they either interpret it one of two ways, right? It's either just like, no, I disagree with this because the destination like is the one thing that matters because I set out on this journey to get to the destination. Or you get people who sort of see it as like a follow your passion kind of thing, and even that, like there's truth to it, but people misinterpret it, right? They sort of see it as like, oh, just do it because it's fun, right? And then the moment it stops being fun, you stop doing it. That's not the case at all. If you want to achieve anything of substance, anything of proper substance that you have to work hard at over a long period of time, it's not going to be fun a lot of the time, right? But as I was speaking about with those athletes and those people who just become really successful, there is a baseline passion for it. Like they like it in one way or another, right? Now, whether it's just something they love, like say football, right? Like it's a sport. Like they've loved it since they were really young, and they have this burning desire for it, right? Or it's like people who, it's not like you look at like your CEOs and everything. There's people who do sort of like stereotypical like boring jobs, like accountants and all of that, right? Like it's not something you can say they have a passion for, but they have also found a way to enjoy the journey, right? To enjoy the process. So if you're not like lucky enough to find something that you could call like your passion, that you also like want to work hard at over a long period of time, you can find something that's more practical, but you can find a way to enjoy it. Now, if there's one thing I have heard about like hyper successful people is that they usually have like two components, right? And it's one of them is that they have like a crippling sense of insufficiency, right? They have insecurity about something, like they feel like they were never good enough for whatever reason, and they have to prove that. And then the second component is that they have like an ego, right? Like they feel like they are better than everyone else and they should be better than everyone else, and those two things sort of combine to drive them to try and achieve these massive things. Now, I don't know if you need to have that, but you need to find a way to make yourself enjoy the process. Like you need to have like, and this is where your why kind of comes along, right? You need to find something that it's practical. It's not something you have like a passion for, but you found a way to make yourself like enjoy the process. And it might not be like the actual doing of the thing, but it's sort of a system you can set for yourself, right? And this is kind of getting into hacks, like motivation, self-improvement hacks, where you found a way to sort of like reward yourself along the journey. It's like, oh, if I keep doing this, right? And I think this is one of the biggest like things that successful people implement that get them to sort of achieve things over a long period of time. And it's the reason a success and working hard for something that's only gonna come to fruition over a long period of time is so difficult is that the gap between the hard work and the reward is so massive that it almost like your brain almost forgets, like within the hard times it forgets like why you're doing it, right? And that's when you quit, right? That's why things like video games are so addictive, right? It's like the gap between the reward and the hard work is very, very close, and that's sort of what you need to do to force yourself to sort of enjoy the journey. Now, again, you need to have like some kind of something you like about like what you're doing. You're not just going to do something that you completely hate and force yourself. Like either you're never going to achieve that, which is very likely, or it's just going to be a miserable existence for you. But yeah, either way, like even though it's not something that you have like a massive passion for, find something you're remotely interested in, right? But you know that like, oh, I'm not really like very passionate about this, and the way you sort of beat that is by lessening the gap between your hard work and your reward. Find your way to reward yourself over a small period of time. And another thing you can do is also measure your progress, right? You want to measure, like a good example I can give is like hitting the gym, right? If you're going to the gym and you're just doing whatever, like maybe you even have like a set gym routine and you're doing all your exercises and everything, but you're not measuring anything, right? You're not going to get that feeling of progress, right? If you track your lifts, and this is something I heard from the Modern Wisdom podcast, Chris Williamson was speaking about it. If you track your lifts, it makes it so much more exciting, so much more rewarding, right? Because it's like, oh, you can sort of look back. If you have like 3 weeks where you don't improve on your lifts, you look back and you're like, there's a problem here, right? Like you look back and not feel great, and you quickly switch up, and it's like, oh, this I'm just going to try and lift like zero point 0.5 kgs more this year, this week than I did last week, right? And all of a sudden you're tracking, right? And you've got like a reward for yourself. You don't even need to like implement like little rewards for yourself. It's the reward of like just knowing that you're improving is enough to keep you going, and that's exactly what you need to do to keep like enjoying the process, to keep you going over a long period of time. But you cannot like achieve anything of substance without finding a way to enjoy the process in one way or another. And as I said, it doesn't need to be like as you're doing it. Like if you're like training, if you're an athlete training, like I can guarantee you, like I've trained like hard for like football. It's not fun like going and doing the sprints, like getting into shape. Even the little like when I'm doing like dribbling, you're dribbling through the cones and everything. It's not fun, like because you're doing it over and over again. It gets boring. But what keeps you going is, well, you want to have your why, and you want to have a small gap between your hard work and your reward, whatever that is. And then the third thing you want to have is you want to have a measure of your progress. You want to measure the hard work you're doing, and you can see that like, oh, I haven't progressed here, and that it puts something in your up, because it's like I'm putting in all this hard work and I'm not like progressing, like I have nothing to show for it. It sort of kicks you into gear. It's like, okay, I've got to like just find a way to improve, and that just doing that over long periods of time is what guarantees success. And if you're someone that doesn't believe in like, oh, you're not convinced about, oh, the joy is in the journey, not the destination, I'll give you something that really like got me to take this seriously. And I was listening to Jordan Peterson, and he said something about how, upon like analysis of like the brain and how it works, it was a study. I'm not explaining this properly, but it basically there's a conclusion that there is no positive emotion released upon achieving something. So like if you're working hard towards something and you achieve that goal, right, there is no positive emotion, a very little positive emotion released when you get that thing, right? But the positive emotion is released upon progress towards that goal, right? And I've butchered that, but I'm sure you get like what I'm trying to say, right? Like science is telling you this, that you get nothing, you get like no. Just picture those people who sort of, if you've heard the stories of like athletes who've worked their whole lives to achieve something, right? To like win like a specific trophy, and then when they win it, the next day they kind of sit back and they're like, now what, right? And all musicians, like I know like NF, like he's a rapper that I listen to, and he went through like some sort of like crisis because he had a really successful album, right? And then he went into a deep depression because he was like, now what, right? And this just it hits at home. Like you don't get like joy from actually achieving the thing. It's about like working towards something, and that feeling that that you get like when you have achieved something and it's like, what's next? It's a very necessary component of humans. Like we need to have that mentality, because otherwise you'd achieve something and then you sort of just waste away and your life is meaningless, right? So you need to like keep going. So that's always going to be a thing. You're never going to achieve. You need to get rid of the notion of like, oh, one day I'm going to achieve this and then everything's going to be perfect, right? Because you get bored. You get bored. Even those people who get retired. They've been working so hard for so long to retire. Then they retire and then no, they're bored. They're like, I kind of want to do something, right? Or you might have even experienced it yourself. When you get like a holiday. Like I always experience it. Like when I'm studying and it's like really grueling and everything, and I just can't wait to finish exams. When I finish exams, I'm sort of just sitting here. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, what am I gonna do today? I'm kind of bored. Like I want to do something, right? Because that's just how we are as humans. We're progress-oriented beings, right? Because we need that. We need to keep working towards something. So change like your mentality of like, oh, one day I'm gonna achieve this, and that, and then I'm gonna be happy. It should be more of like a a lifestyle. Like, what's a lifestyle you want to achieve, right? Like, it's still like a destination, but change that destination from being just something you tick off, right? From something that's just, oh, I've got it now, right? Like materialistic things, for example, or even like, oh, one day I'm gonna get married and then I'll be happy. It's like change it to uh, yeah, a progress oriented kind of thing. So it's like for me, something like I picture like my dream scenario of like, oh, I've achieved it, then I'll be happy. It's a I don't picture like, oh, one day I'm gonna have this amount of money in the bank and then I'll be happy. For me, it's like I'll have this amount of money in the bank and I'll have like my friends and like my family and everything, and then I'll be able to do like all the things I want to do, like wake up every day and like ride my bike, go play football, right, or go see like new things or find like new things that I want to do. Maybe like when I buy like a second house or whatever, and I'm like working on the renovations and I have like a vision that I want to implement, things like that, because I can guarantee you, and even like with the studies I'm just telling you now, you will not get anything from like, oh, I've got $10 million in the bank now I'm happy, right? It's like, no, it's like, what are you doing after that? Like, well, what are you doing every day? What are you working towards? And that's something you should always implement. And for me, one thing I've found, like, I look forward to is like football, right? I love football. Like, I have a massive passion for it, right? It's like once I hit like a certain once I hit like that number in the bank, it's not about like the money, but it's more about like I can actually like play football like a lot more on a more serious level. I can like invest in like a league for me and my friends, and we play like every week, and it's like this big thing. And it's sports, right? Like, again, like sports is like the perfect illustration of this mentality, right? It's You don't enjoy like, oh, can you imagine if sports like the only way you enjoy sports was like, oh, I'm gonna wake up every day and I'm just gonna look at the results, right? Then that takes the fun out of it, right? It's more about like watching like your team progressing. Like the fun is in seeing your team start to finish and how they achieve that. And also just for you in your life, if you have a sport that you like, I'm sure every time you play it, you're like, oh, I can't wait to play next time. I can't wait to play next time. Like, you actually enjoy like playing it. It's not about, oh, we won the game today. I've achieved this. Oh, I can finally like hit this kind of shot, right? I can finally do this skill. I'm done. It's like, no, you want to play. You want to play over and over and over again. You want to keep challenging yourself, playing with people that are like on your level, and you keep challenging yourself. That's like sports. That's why we love sports. Like even like playing it. That is the essence of what I'm trying to say is that the joy is in the journey, not the destination. But yeah, I've been beating around the. Oh no, I haven't been beating around the bush, but I've hit the point home enough. I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. Make sure you subscribe to Joe the Self Improvement Brotherhood, and until next time, I'll see you boys.